Some of you might know that in Germany, beer is called liquid bread, or that beer is cheaper than water here, which was actually true at one point. Beer is ingrained into German culture. From Oktoberfest to the 6,000 different kinds of beer in the country, if you drank a different German beer once a day, it would take you more than 17 years to try every beer in the country. I want to see if beer is really as ubiquitous here as the stereotype leads us to believe. So I'm going to try to experience German beer culture myself and dive into what makes drinking beer in this country so unique. Okay, so I want to be upfront. I'm not very good with alcohol. I used to drink craft beer quite a bit, but since COVID, I haven't really drank a lot, and my tolerance hasn't been the same. Now, given that beer is alcohol, I'm not gonna drink too much of it because I don't want to look super red, you know? But there is one place that I really want to go check out. This is Hofbräuhaus, one of the oldest beer halls in Munich. It was opened by the Duke of Bavaria in 1589 because the Duke thought that beer in Munich was so bad compared to the rest of Germany, he had to take matters into his own hands. And since this beer hall opened, it's turned Munich into one of the most iconic cities in the world for beer. People like Mozart and Lenin have come here. It's got 3 floors of beer and food, and I'm just excited to see if it lives up to the hype. Okay, I get why beer is a big deal here. That's actually really good. This court here in Munich is full of beer gardens. That's a beer garden. That's a beer garden. That's a beer garden. Japanese restaurant, Starbucks, beer garden, Hard Rock Cafe. So there's a few reasons why beer is so big in Germany. I'll start with the reason why Germany drinks beer at all. To be clear, beer has existed in Germany for like over 1,000 years. And for the longest time, it was considered cleaner and cheaper than water. I mean, it took Europe a pretty long time to figure out how to separate sewage from drinking water. But in the 1500s, a beer purity law was passed here in Bavaria. This law, that's still active today, makes sure that all beer in Germany is made with barley, hops, yeast, and clean water. It's basically like a standardization of German beer. Beer in Germany has to be made with these ingredients, which has been a source for controversy to say the least.
Some smaller breweries make non-standard brews, like English ales, which German law says can't be called beer.
We are proud of this culture. We are proud of this art of brewing beer with only 4 ingredients.
There's a lot of arguments against the law, and over the centuries it's needed to make exceptions. And while the law isn't as strict as it used to be, it's still one of the most rigid regulations surrounding beer. But it also regulates the price of beer. The law kept wheat and rye stocks at an affordable price, which is what kept German beer cheaper than water for centuries. Also, the law allows the state to collect profits from German beer production, meaning the German government actually directly makes a lot of money off of domestic beer production, not through trading or exports or anything like that. Just producing beer in Germany alone makes the government money. Oh, also, bread uses wheat and rye as well. That means that this law keeps bread cheap in the country too. So yeah, this law is basically the genesis to modern-day German beer culture. And the reason why beer culture is so strong in Germany is because for a long time, beer was cleaner and cheaper than water. Remember, Europe didn't figure out wastewater treatment and separating sewage from drinking water until like the 1800s. Cholera was a huge problem, and it led people in Germany to just drink beer instead. And the culture of drinking beer like it's water has mostly been the same in the country ever since. And that leads us to the second reason. There's just a lot of beer in Germany. Recently in America, craft beer has been on the rise to diversify the market. But in Germany, beer has been diverse for generations. For example, here's a list of some of the types of beers depending on preferences. If you like heavier malt beers, you have these options. But if you like light beers instead, there's these. Each style is nuanced, and many of them have inspired beer in the US and elsewhere. Pilsner has especially influenced these brands. And it's not only the US, German beer has influenced beer cultures around the world, like in Mexico, Korea, or Japan. Fun fact about Munich, it's one of the very few major cities in the world where you can surf in the middle of the city. The uniquely high standards of beer here has encouraged other countries to keep up. But despite how prevalent beer is in Germany, it's beginning to face a problem because beer is in decline here.
Germans are turning away from beer.
Which almost sounds like a paradox. How is German beer such a big deal here when it's been in decline since the 90s? Well, Germany's population is shrinking, which means less Germans, but also the country is rapidly shifting socially. Among other countries, Germany has become very health conscious in the past few years. I mean, you can see this in many different ways, like how veganism is rapidly on the rise in this country. Beer isn't necessarily the healthiest drink out there, and as our social activities change, beer and alcohol in general is becoming less important. Also, most of Germany's large breweries have become pretty complacent and haven't really changed in generations. Large breweries in Germany were pretty late to a lot of trends like bottled beer, and they didn't really push to export their beer overseas either.
We don't need to look very far, then we find Belgium, which has got a great beer culture, and they produce beers made with spices, made with fruits, which wouldn't be allowed in Germany.
So yeah, beer in Germany isn't as big as it used to be, but that still doesn't mean that it's not a big deal here. It's because of this country alone that beer in a lot of the world tastes the way it does today. From a law that made beer cheaper and cleaner than water, to the societal normalization of beer, to the 6,000 different kinds of beer in the country, Germans have a pretty good reason to love the drink. But the German breweries that have become complacent now have to fight to survive and stay big. The question now is, will German beer slowly die out the way it is today? Or will it eventually bring back its A game and keep making the best beer in the world? We'll see.